This is a look back at an older model built well over a decade ago in early 2011. Round 2 had just reissued the Road Boss kit, and it was the subject of a group build on an online forum. I had always liked the look of this truck, which I'd seen in Kim Loeb's collection on the now defunct site Hank's Truck Pictures, a classic New England short-nosed single-axle tractor. With this photo for reference, and knowing that the real truck's 92-inch bumper-to-back of cab dimension works out to 3.68 actual inches in 1/25th scale, the first step was to begin assembly of the frame and locate the rear cab mount crossmember. With that in place, the next step was to locate the forward cab mounts. Battery boxes and additional suspension components were attached next. And now the cab and interior tub could be set in place to provide a reference point for locating other components. The turbocharged Cummins engine from the Road Boss kit was replaced with a non-turbo version from an AMT White Freightliner kit, but it was still quite a shoehorn job fitting that engine underneath the cab. Fuel tanks received a 10 thou styrene wrapper to hide the seam, and individual tank bands were added using styrene strip. Single drive suspension and rear axle were taken from AMT's Ford Louisville kit, and the frame rails were left extra long for trimming to final length later. The black circles on the frame near the fuel tank area are plugs made from black styrene parts runner, heated and stretched, to fill unneeded holes in the frame. The hood was the most challenging part of the project and took a couple of tries to get right. Here, the required 30 scale inches to be removed is marked out. Pieces have been reassembled, and initial filling and sanding of the seams has been started. Underside view of shortened hood before final sanding and removal of ejector pin marks was completed. Cab and hood are temporarily installed on the frame so that the rear fender pieces, which are permanently attached to the cab, can be fitted into place. Fender sections are installed to cab shell, and styrene sheet is used to extend the cowl on the air cleaner mounting side, as well as filling in the original air cleaner mounting hole on the cowl. Italeri FLC Freightliner steps from the parts box became the starting point for new fuel tank steps. Chrome was removed, holes were drilled out, the steps were cut down to 2 holes wide, and glued to the tank bands with styrene strip triangular gussets for support. At this stage, the model was starting to look more and more like the prototype photo. A set of Transtar 4300 quarter fenders from the parts box provided raw material for the kit's quarter fenders. The fenders themselves were retained, but molded on details replaced for more realistic appearance using styrene tube for the crossbar and styrene rod for the 3 support braces. U-bolts are bent from 020 brass wire to secure the crossbar to the frame. Although this truck is a Western Star, not a Road Boss, the basic round air cleaner was similar enough to the prototype Road Boss to be used for a reference to scratch build an air cleaner. Main body of the air cleaner's evergreen half-inch styrene tube, with channel and styrene rod used for the mounting bracket. Mud flaps are the Road Boss kit parts, cut free from the mounting brackets, sanded thinner, and reattached with mounting brackets made from styrene strip and rod. The paint job on this fleet truck was pretty simple. The frame and running gear received a basic coat of flat black. Wheels were touched up with Tester's dark red, and an initial coat of primer was applied to the cab and hood. A big part of the appeal of the 1-to-1 truck as a modeling project was a 2-tone red and gray paint job, which started with dark gray being applied to the cab and hood. Upper portion of cab was painted Tester's dark red, and in this picture you can also see how the interior tub was reworked with the doghouse extending well back into the cab to cover the engine. Back in 2011, I hadn't started adding a lot of extra interior detail, so the cab interior on this model is pretty basic, although I did use styrene strip and rod to scratch build freestanding brake knobs. Something else I hadn't started using back in 2011 was Alclad, so the chrome parts on this model were simply finished with Testra's Model Master silver chrome trim paint. The weed burner exhaust was built up using a combination of styrene tube and strip, aluminum tube for the turn-down pipe, and a section from the kit's exhaust pipe. Styrene strip and rod was used to create the hanger. Marker lights for the cab roof aren't 100% accurate, but they are a decent representation, made by combining an amber bullet marker light from the AMT parts tree with a styrene disc painted black representing the base. Horns are a parts box item, which I believe may have come from a Ford C-Series kit. The end bells are drilled out and the horn cleaned up. And the overall appearance is actually quite good, especially when compared with an unmodified part as shown here. In 2011, I hadn't started scratch building mirror brackets, and on this model I used the stock kit parts with the chrome removed, along with some styrene strip and discs to represent additional mounting hardware and the convex spot mirror. Reflective surfaces on the mirrors are chrome mylar tape. The white pinstriping was added using strips cut from white decal paper, and the AMP Transportation logo was drawn on a CAD program and printed on white decal paper. White decal letters from microscale were used to create lease to and ICC number on the cab door. And on the back of the cab, the air hose hanger was made using a spring wound from fine gauge craft wire. The kit's molded on windshield wipers were removed and replaced with individual freestanding wipers scratch built from styrene strip. License plate was drawn with a CAD program, printed on white decal paper, and applied to a piece of thin shim brass so the bent license plate could be replicated. Thank you for joining me on this brief look back at one of the older models in the collection. I still have this one. There are no plans to get rid of it or rebuild it, but I am considering building another road boss of a different prototype and applying some of the newer techniques I've learned over the years.